I was the golden child my parents worshipped. They hijacked every one of my siblings' birthdays for me, bought me a car at 12, and let me laugh while they begged for college help. So when they finally snapped, exposed everything live, let Grandpa cut me out of the will, and turn my perfect life into a public disaster, I never saw it coming. I'm 34 now. I grew up as the youngest child, with an older sister, Maya, 36, and an older brother, Ethan, 32. From as early as I can remember, I was the one. That's what my parents called me, sometimes jokingly, sometimes not. I was the smart one, the charismatic one, the one with potential. My parents, Linda and Robert, were not subtle about it. They praised me constantly, bragged about me to relatives, teachers, neighbors. When I did well, it was proof I was special. When my siblings struggled, it was proof they weren't trying hard enough. This wasn't hidden. It was the family dynamic. Everyone knew it. Even extended family joked about it. I didn't invent that system. I grew up inside it. Maya was always described as difficult, too sensitive, too dramatic. Ethan was lazy or unmotivated. Every argument, every complaint they had about fairness was brushed off as jealousy. My parents framed it as simple math. I earned what I got. They didn't. End of discussion. And before people jump in with hindsight, no, at the time it didn't feel abusive to me. It felt normal. When something is reinforced for years by the two people who shape your entire worldview, you stop questioning it. I didn't wake up one day and decide my siblings deserved less. I was taught they did. The birthdays are usually what people latch onto first, so I'll address that head on. Yes, it's true that my siblings' birthdays eventually became less about them. It didn't happen all at once. When we were kids, it started small. Maya wanted chocolate cake, but I didn't like it, so the cake would be vanilla, so everyone could enjoy it. Ethan wanted a certain theme, but my parents would say it was too expensive, and then buy me something extra to make up for it, because I was being so understanding. By the time we were teenagers, it was blatant. On Maya's 16th birthday, the cake was my favorite flavor, and I got a new gaming console because I'd had a great semester. She got clothes. Ethan's 18th birthday, same thing. Smaller gifts, muted celebration, while I was given something for motivation. My parents justified it constantly. They said I needed encouragement to stay on track, that the others had already shown who they were. Did Maya and Ethan get upset? Yes. Did they complain? Constantly. Did I see it as injustice? No. I saw it as them refusing to accept reality. That's the environment I was raised in. When you're told over and over that someone is mad because they're jealous of your success, you internalize that narrative. You don't question whether the success itself is artificially inflated. The favoritism escalated as we got older. When I was 12, my parents bought me a car, not a toy, not a junker, an actual car. They said it was to teach responsibility and give me a head start. Maya was 14 at the time and wasn't allowed to borrow it. Ethan had to beg for rides to after-school jobs. I remember him asking once if he could use the car for a shift, and my parents told him no because if Caleb needs it, it needs to be available. I didn't argue. Why would I? I'd been told my needs mattered more. College made the divide undeniable. There was a college fund, singular, for me. Maya went into debt. Ethan worked 2 jobs. When they asked my parents for help, they were told to figure it out like adults. I remember Ethan asking me once if I could loan him a small amount to cover books. I laughed. I didn't see it as cruelty at the time. I saw it as him asking me to fix his problem instead of taking responsibility. That's how deeply the conditioning ran. As adults, nothing really changed. I lived comfortably. My parents helped with rent when my business was starting. They bailed me out when I overextended on credit. They co-signed things they never would have for my siblings. Maya cut contact years ago. Ethan stayed around but distant, stiff, clearly resentful. I chalked it up to bitterness. I told myself I'd worked hard and earned my position. It never occurred to me that the playing field had never been level. The turning point happened at what was supposed to be a normal family gathering. It was my grandfather Frank's birthday, an event my parents insisted on live streaming for extended family who couldn't attend. Maya and Ethan hadn't been invited, as far as I knew. They showed up anyway. From the moment they walked in, the energy shifted. My parents tried to smooth it over, make jokes, redirect attention back to me like they always did. But this time, it didn't work. Maya started talking, calmly at first. She went year by year, example by example. Birthdays, holidays, school, money, opportunities. She wasn't emotional. That's what shocked me. She was precise. Ethan followed, pulling out numbers, dates, receipts. He talked about tuition, about debt, about asking for help and being laughed at. My parents denied it at first, said it was exaggerated, said they did their best. I tried to interrupt. I joked. I told them they were being dramatic, that this wasn't the time or place. That's when I noticed my grandfather hadn't said a word. When he finally spoke, the room went silent. He said he'd known for years, that he'd hoped I'd grow out of it, that he'd hoped my parents would correct course. Then he said something I still can't get out of my head, that I wasn't born entitled, I was trained. He announced right there that I was being cut out of his will, that his assets would go to my siblings and a charitable trust. He said I was a product of selfish parenting, and that continuing to reward me would only validate it. I didn't even know how to respond. I felt like the floor disappeared. This wasn't a private conversation. This was live, recorded, family members watching. My parents looked stunned, then furious. Not at my siblings, but at me. They accused me later of not defending them hard enough, of letting the narrative run away from them. The fallout was immediate. The live stream spread. Extended family reached out, not to me, but to Maya and Ethan. People I'd known my whole life suddenly saw me differently. Business contacts went quiet. Friends stopped returning calls. I went from golden child to cautionary tale in the span of an afternoon. I feel humiliated, betrayed, angry. I didn't make these rules. I didn't design this system. I grew up inside it and did what anyone does. I adapted. Now I'm being punished like I orchestrated it all from birth. So I'm asking honestly, is it fair to punish me for choices my parents made? For dynamics I was raised to believe were normal? My siblings didn't just confront our parents. They burned everything down, publicly, and now I'm expected to just accept the wreckage. I didn't make the rules, I just lived by them. Update 1. I didn't expect things to get worse this fast, but they did. Within a week of that birthday blow-up, my grandfather passed. No dramatic reconciliation, no last-minute clarifications. He was already in decline, and the stress of that night clearly didn't help. The will was executed exactly as he said it would be. I was officially out. No token inheritance, no trust, nothing. Maya and Ethan were named beneficiaries, along with a charitable fund he'd set up years ago. Seeing it in writing hit harder than hearing it out loud. There was no ambiguity left. This wasn't a threat or a lesson. It was permanent. My parents spiraled almost immediately after that. And here's the part I didn't anticipate. Once the will was finalized and the extended family backlash really set in, they stopped treating me like the solution and started treating me like the problem. At first, they were angry in that familiar way, snapping, defensive, blaming Maya and Ethan for turning Grandpa against us. But that shifted fast. Bills came due. Legal fees stacked up. The reality of not having access to my grandfather's money anymore set in, and suddenly I wasn't the golden child so much as the last remaining asset. They started calling me constantly, not to check on me, to ask for help, financial help. They framed it as temporary, as a bridge until things stabilized. I asked what happened to their savings, and they got evasive. Turns out a lot of their confidence had been built on the assumption that Grandpa would always be there as a fallback. When that disappeared, so did their safety net. I didn't say yes right away. That alone caused tension. My mother accused me of forgetting where I came from. My father said I owed them for everything they'd done for me. That was the first time I felt something crack. Not guilt, resentment. I'd spent my whole life being told I was special, that I was the investment, that everything they poured into me was because I was worth it. Now that investment was being called in, and I wasn't sure I liked the terms. Meanwhile, Maya blocked me completely. No explanation, no parting message, just gone. Ethan sent one email. It wasn't long, but it was precise. He said he was done engaging in conversations where his pain was treated like an inconvenience. He said he didn't want apologies or explanations. He wanted distance. He told me not to contact him again unless it was through a lawyer. That was it. No insults, no dramatics, just boundaries. I didn't take that well. I won't pretend I did. I felt abandoned. I felt like I was being punished for finally being left without a script. For the first time, I wasn't being guided, praised, or propped up. And instead of stepping in, my siblings walked away. That hurt more than I expected, and my instinct was to get angry instead of curious. The social fallout kept snowballing. That livestream didn't just circulate within the family, it got shared. People I did business with had seen it or heard about it. A couple of deals quietly died. No one said, "This is because of your family drama," but the timing wasn't subtle. Friends I'd known for years stopped inviting me to things. Conversations dried up. I went from being someone people gravitated toward to someone they avoided, like I was radioactive. My default reaction was to double down. I told anyone who would listen that Maya and Ethan had manipulated Grandpa when he was vulnerable, that they'd poisoned him against me, that they'd staged a public ambush to humiliate me. I leaned hard into the narrative that I was the victim of a coordinated takedown, and for a while, I believed it, or at least I wanted to. But cracks started forming in places I didn't expect. I was going through old messages one night, looking for something. Validation, I guess. Proof that I'd always been treated normally. Instead, I started noticing patterns I'd never questioned. How often my parents dismissed my siblings' concerns. How often they framed things in terms of what I deserved. How rarely I was ever told no. How often I'd assumed help was coming because it always had. There was a text from years ago from Ethan asking if I could talk. I'd replied days later with something flippant. Another from Maya, congratulating me on a promotion and joking about how the family's favorite did it again. I'd responded with a laughing emoji. At the time, it felt harmless. Looking at it now, it felt revealing. I'm not saying I had some sudden moral awakening. I'm still angry. I still think the public exposure was excessive. I still think my siblings could have handled things privately if they wanted resolution instead of spectacle, but I can't deny that the structure I thrived in came at their expense. That realization doesn't make me feel noble or redeemed, it makes me feel unmoored. The hardest part is this: I don't actually know who I am without them propping me up. My confidence, my expectations, my sense of normal, all of it was built inside a system that no longer exists. I was raised to assume support, praise, and forgiveness were constants. Now they're gone, and I'm left trying to figure out whether what I thought was success was just insulation. I still don't think I'm the villain everyone wants me to be, but I also can't honestly say I'm just an innocent bystander anymore. For the first time in my life, I'm sitting with a question I was never taught to ask. What did I take without realizing it? And I don't have an answer yet. Final update. I waited longer to write this than I planned to, partly because I didn't want to admit how much has changed, and partly because once I put it down in words, it becomes permanent. There's no spinning it after that, no reframing, just what is. The short version is this: everything my life rested on collapsed, and there was no secret backup waiting underneath it. After my grandfather's death and the will being finalized, my parents' situation unraveled fast. I'd assumed they had savings, investments, something. They didn't. What they had was confidence. Confidence that Grandpa would always cover the gap if something went wrong. When that disappeared, so did their stability. They sold the house 3 months later, not because they wanted to downsize, but because they had to. The mortgage had been manageable when there was a safety net behind it. Without one, it wasn't. Watching the house go up for sale was surreal. That place had been the center of everything. The stage where the favoritism played out, where I was celebrated and my siblings were minimized. Seeing strangers walk through it with clipboards felt like watching a set being dismantled after a long-running show. Their marriage started cracking too. I'd never seen my parents turn on each other the way they did once there was no one else left to blame. My dad accused my mom of pushing too hard. My mom accused my dad of never saying no. They both circled back to the same conclusion eventually, though they didn't like admitting it. They'd ruined all three of us in different ways. Maya and Ethan by neglect, me by overindulgence. They didn't say that part directly to me at first. They hinted around it. Then one night, after a few drinks, my dad said it outright. He didn't apologize. He didn't soften it. He just said, "We taught you to expect the world to bend for you. That's on us." That was the closest thing to accountability I've heard from either of them. By then, my own reality had shifted too. Without my parents' support, things I'd taken for granted stopped working. The lifestyle I'd built assumed help would always be there if I stumbled. It wasn't. I downsized my apartment. I sold a car I didn't actually need, but had convinced myself was normal. I stopped eating out like it didn't matter. None of this made me destitute, but it made something painfully clear. I'd never really learned how to live without a cushion. That realization was humiliating in a way I wasn't prepared for. Not because I'd lost money, but because I'd lost the story I told myself about why I had it in the first place. I did try reaching out to my siblings again. Not with an apology, at least not the kind people expect. I didn't write some groveling message asking for forgiveness. I tried to explain. I tried to say I was starting to understand how warped our family dynamics were, how I benefited from them even if I didn't design them. I told myself that was reasonable, honest even. It didn't work. Maya never responded. Ethan replied once, briefly. He said explanation wasn't what he needed. He said understanding after the fact didn't undo the damage. He told me again that he wasn't interested in rebuilding anything with me, that he wished me well but wanted distance. Reading that felt like hitting a wall I could no longer argue with. There was no opening left to push through. I started therapy after that, not because I suddenly wanted self-improvement points, but because I didn't know what else to do with the anger. I went in expecting to talk about betrayal, about my siblings, my grandfather, my parents. Instead, the therapist kept pulling the conversation back to me, to my expectations, to how I reacted when things didn't go my way, to the difference between intent and impact. I didn't like those sessions at first. They were uncomfortable in a way I couldn't deflect with humor or logic. I was forced to look at how often I'd dismissed my siblings' feelings because acknowledging them would have meant giving something up: attention, resources, the sense that I was special. One thing that hit harder than I expected was learning more about my grandfather's role. Through a relative, I found out he'd tried to intervene years ago, not dramatically, quietly. He'd questioned my parents about the imbalance. He'd suggested helping Maya with tuition. He'd offered to fund Ethan's trade school outright. My parents declined, insisting they had a plan. That plan was me. Knowing that reframed everything. Grandpa didn't cut me out impulsively, or because he'd been poisoned. He'd been watching this play out for decades, waiting to see if I'd ever step out of the role I'd been given. When I didn't, when I laughed at a joke that shouldn't have been funny, when I minimized my siblings' pain publicly, that was the confirmation he needed. I'm not writing this to claim redemption. I don't think I've earned that, and I don't think it's coming. My siblings don't owe me reconciliation. My grandfather doesn't owe me forgiveness. Even my parents don't owe me the version of themselves I was used to. What I've had to accept is this: benefiting from abuse doesn't make you innocent just because you didn't start it. I wasn't a mastermind, but I wasn't powerless either. I leaned into the advantages I was given. I enjoyed them. I defended them when they were questioned. That matters. Losing the inheritance is permanent. Losing my siblings may be permanent too. That's something I'm still learning to sit with, without turning it into self-pity or anger. Some days I do better than others. Some days I still want to argue my case, to point out that I didn't create the system. But wanting fairness after benefiting from unfairness is a hard argument to make honestly. I don't see myself as a monster. I also don't see myself as a victim anymore. I was shaped by something unhealthy, and I carried it forward because it worked for me. That's the truth, stripped of drama. If there's anything I'm taking from this, it's that being favored isn't the same as being loved, and being protected isn't the same as being prepared. I mistook attention for worth and insulation for strength. Losing those illusions hurt more than losing the money ever could. I thought being the favorite meant I won. Turns out, it just meant I was the last one to realize how much was taken from everyone else.